from the National News Studio, Sri Lanka.
Hello and welcome to the National News. We are coming to you live from the National News Studio and together with wonderful Sharifa Tahir, I'm Dulanjali Anand. And before we start off the news, we would like to wish all the women around the world and in Sri Lanka on behalf of Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation a happy Women's Day. And these are the top stories which are making the headlines tonight. World oil prices continue to remain high. Minister of Energy assures the Cabinet that the fuel crisis will be resolved after Thursday. Continuous electricity supply for priority areas. Steps to convene Economic Council on weekly basis. Discussion between the President and Sri Lanka Freedom Party. Women are the most decisive entity in Sri Lanka as well, Prime Minister says. Evacuation of civilians trapped in Ukraine cities begins. Now today is the 8th of March and we are commemorating the International Women's Day. Now the world was blessed with two individuals, man and woman. Together they're a wonderful team. But after some time there were certain confrontations where the women's efforts were not much recognized and therefore certain group of women in New York had to march and demand for their rights, and it was on a day like today back in 1908. The earliest purported Women's Day observance, called National Women's Day, was held on February 28 in the year 1909 in New York City. There have been claims that the day was commemorating a protest by women garment workers in New York on March 8, 1857. In August 1910, an International Socialist Women's Conference was organized, proposed the establishment of an annual Women's Day. In 1914, International Women's Day was held on March 8 for the first time in Germany. Women represent more than a half of Sri Lanka's population and placed on top of many global social development indexes similar to the developed economies in the world. This is Ms. Priyani. Even though her businesses were engulfed by the tsunami wave, she was able to resume her businesses in merely 2 weeks with great self-belief and is now a skilled entrepreneur who has taken Sri Lankan Biralu products to the global market. This is Ms. Geethangani Pereira. She has been successful in conquering the world market through reed and cane industries. Leonie Vass was ranked among the 10 global SDG pioneers awarded by the United Nations last year. These are the first 2 female pilots who had completed the Sri Lanka Air Force training in history. They are currently serving as flying officers at the Katunayaka Air Force Base.
We move on to more stories with regards to Women's Day. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa says women have become a decisive entity in Sri Lanka. The Prime Minister made these remarks while taking part in the national ceremony to mark the International Women's Day held at the Sirimawa Bandaranayake Memorial Conference Hall today. The 2022 national ceremony to mark the International Women's Day was held under the patronage of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and spouse of the Prime Minister, Mrs. Shiranti Wickramasinghe Rajapaksa. The Prime Minister also observed the exhibition and the trade stalls for products of women organized to appreciate women with courage to stand on their own feet. The program was organized by the State Ministry of Women and Children's Development, Preschool and Primary Education and School Infrastructure and Education Services under the theme Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa remembered one of the most inspirational female figure in his political life as well as the country's history. He said that this figure is late former Prime Minister Sirimawa Bandaranaike. He said that when he was elected into the parliament as the youngest parliamentarian, late Sirimawa Bandaranaike was his leader. He said that she was one of the fearless leaders ever to be seen in politics. He said that she embarked with the determination to create a self-sufficient Sri Lanka while developing local industries. He said that late Sirimawa Bandaranaike reflects Sri Lanka's womanhood. Even she had to face various criticisms in her journey to create a self-sufficient local economy, he added. The Prime Minister said that the present government has also been faced with such difficulties and challenges as then. He said that the biggest issue faced by the women in the world is the Great War, as they are the ones who have been severely impacted from the war amidst many sufferings. He said that the biggest service rendered towards all women in the country was the conclusion of the long war in the country. The Premier also said that the women in the country yet again feared for such sufferings with the Easter Sunday attack. However, he said that the government ensured such fears will not occur in the country by reassuring the national security. Women in the country, along with the rest of the world, are on a journey in various sectors at rapid pace. He added that they have become one of the decisive entities in the country. He also said that the women in the country are suffering from the electricity, fuel and gas shortages. However, he said that activities conducted by the Yahapalana government contributed largely for the prevailing issues in the country. Therefore, the public should realize the true reasoning behind these issues without any party discrimination.
ගෙදර යවනකොට නොරොච්චෝලේ ඇතුළු විදුලි බලාගාර ගණනාවක් අවුරුදු 8ක් තුල ඉදි කරලා අපි ගෙදර ගිහින් 2015 ඉඳන් යහපාලන ආණ්ඩුව මෙගාවොට් එකක් ඡාතික විදුලි බල දෙකට එකතු කළේ නැහැ. එහෙම අය අද පාන්නම් අරගෙන විදුලි කප්පාදුවට එරෙහිව පෙළපාදියා. ඒ යන කාටවත් මතක නැහැ මෙගාවොට් එකක්වත් ඒගොල්ලෝ එකතු කරලා නැති බව. ආදරණීය සොයුරිනි. මේ තියෙන දුෂ්කරතාව විතරක් නෙවෙයි. ඒව ඇතිවීමට බලපෑ හේතු තේරුම් ගන්න. අපි පක්ෂ ભેදයක් නැතුව මේ ගැන හිතමු. මේ දුෂ්කර අවස්ථාවේ ඉවසීමෙන් වැඩ කරමු.
The presentation of certificates to encourage women, scholarships and loan certificates for self-employment was held with the participation of the Prime Minister.
Now we momently deviate from local news, and this is about the global matter that is making headlines. Due to the conflict that is taking place between Russia and Ukraine, there are certain complications which will subsequently impact Sri Lanka as well. So one of them is the oil crisis, and this is about the prices hiking up in the charts.
Exactly. And we will be giving you an update on this, as experts do discuss that this could be a really grave situation for the global economy as well. The fuel prices touched $139 per barrel for a brief period, highest in 13 years. The global rate of a crude oil barrel remained at $125 limit today. The world market experts have warned that this situation is expected to create a grave economic downfall in the global level. The international benchmark Brent crude advanced a 4% to $122.81 per barrel. Brent hit a high of $139.13 at one point overnight. Experts believe the price is expected to hike further and may soon breach the all-time low level reached in 2008 due to economic depression. The all-time high of $147.50 per barrel crude price was reported in July 2008. Crude oil surged last evening trade as the market continued to react to supply disruptions stemming from Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine and the possibility of a ban on Russian oil and natural gas. The United States and its allies are considering banning Russian oil and natural gas imports, Secretary of State Antony Blinken said yesterday.
Now, evacuations are currently underway in conflict-ridden cities in Ukraine. Ukrainian government has indicated that civilians are being evacuated from the besieged areas of Irpin and Sumy. Russia has declared another ceasefire, and a string of humanitarian corridors have been opened for the evacuees. Meanwhile, Russia has warned that the government could retaliate against European sanctions by cutting off natural gas to the bloc. About two-thirds of Ukraine's population of 44 million people lived in cities prior to the Russia's special military operations. Many urban areas in the country are in the crosshairs of war. Towns and villages in the path of the Russian advance have been devastated, and urban neighborhoods are becoming battlegrounds. Businesses, homes, schools, cultural institutions and historical buildings are all being threatened with destruction. In the meantime, fresh efforts to allow civilians to escape the northeastern city of Sumy and Irpin near Kyiv have begun. In the past few days, Russian shelling has prevented the evacuation of civilians from several besieged cities, despite ceasefire agreements, as Western leaders accusing Russian forces of continuing to target pre-approved safe routes. Fears are also mounting for civilians trapped in the besieged cities of Mariupol, Volnovakha and Kyiv. At least 1.2 million refugees have crossed the border from Ukraine into Poland since the Russian invasion. In total, at least 1.7 million refugees have left Ukraine, according to the United Nations. Though the majority has crossed into Poland, many others have also entered Hungary, Slovakia, Moldova and Romania. On news back at home, Cabinet spokesman Minister Dallas Alahaperima said that 31 out of 45 member countries of the Geneva Human Rights Council have made appreciative remarks over the steps taken to ensure human rights in Sri Lanka. The minister made these remarks while addressing the cabinet briefing held at the Government Information Department today. Minister Dallas Alahaperima said that the subject minister Gamini Lokuge assured during the cabinet meeting held yesterday that the fuel crisis in the country will be resolved after coming Thursday, and Minister Pavitra Vaniarachi presented a plan to limit power interruptions. He said that a couple of swift decisions were taken during the meeting. The minister further said that steps will be taken to supply fuel required for currently inactive power plants in Ambalipitia, Mathura and Sapagaskanda. Meanwhile, Minister Pavitra Vaniarachi has instructed relevant authorities to initiate an operations centre for the continuous electricity supply for priority areas. These instructions were directed during a meeting held at the Ministry of Power today. Attention was directed on the measures which can be taken to ensure a continuous electricity supply. Representatives of many institutions including Ministry of Power, Ceylon Electricity Board, Sustainable Energy Authority, Ministry of Irrigation, Ministry of Industries, Investment Promotion Board, Ministry of Health and Ministry of Defence were present at this occasion.
Cabinet of Ministers has granted approval to convene Economic Council on a weekly basis with the objective of accelerating the economic growth in the country through the management of the entire economy. Chairman of the Council is President Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
The composition of Economic Council is comprised of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, Ministers Bandula Gunawardena, Johnston Fernando, Basil Rajapaksa, Mahindananda Alutgamage and Ramesh Patirana, Governor of Central Bank Ajit Niwad Kabral, Secretary to the President Gamini Senrat, Secretary to the Treasury S.R. Artigala and Deputy Governor of the Central Bank Dhammika Nanayakkara. The Cabinet of Ministers decided to grant their concurrence to the measures to be taken by the President and to invite intellects with esteemed standard in the respective fields as required for the meetings of the Economy Board. The Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal presented by Minister Nimal Sripala de Silva to increase the current incentive allowance granted for the foreign exchange earned by migrant workers, which is at 10 rupees per dollar to 38 rupees per dollar. Meanwhile, Cabinet of Ministers granted approval for the implementation of an incentive scheme based on export progress. Accordingly, the Cabinet approved the proposal presented by the Minister Bandula Gunawardena to pay an incentive of 30 rupees per dollar earned on export earnings earned over the previous quarter to companies that have achieved at least 10% export progress compared to the corresponding quarter of the previous year. In the meantime, Central Bank of Sri Lanka has introduced a policy package to support greater macroeconomic stability. The comprehensive policy package has come to effect from 4th of March. In that context, greater flexibility in the exchange rate has been allowed to the markets with immediate effect. The central bank is also of the view that forex transactions would take place at levels which are not more than 230 rupees per US dollar. The central bank will continue to closely monitor the developments in the domestic foreign exchange market and make appropriate policy adjustments accordingly. However, the central bank has announced the buying rate of the US dollar is at 225.20 rupees, while the selling rate stands at 229.99 rupees. A cabinet spokesman, Minister Dallas Allahaperuma, said that 31 out of 45 member countries of the Geneva Human Rights Council have made appreciative remarks over the steps taken to ensure the human rights in Sri Lanka. The minister made these remarks while addressing the cabinet briefing held at the Government Information Department today. Minister Dallas Allahaperuma said that the present government respects the honor fundamental rights. He said that this was reflected from the appreciative remarks made by 31 out of 45 member countries of the Geneva Human Rights Council over the steps taken to ensure human rights in Sri Lanka. He said that amidst various issues and concerns in the past, Sri Lanka has been able to provide definite solutions within a mechanism.
අතුරුදහන් වෙච්ච රට දැන් අවුරුදු කීයකට ඉස්සෙල්ලාද මේක සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ අවුරුදු 10කට 11කට පමණ පෙර සමට දකුණේ 1988 අතුරුදහන් වෙච්ච ඒවා මේ අය අතර ආණ්ඩු කීයක් ආවද ගියාද අද පළවෙනි වතාවට මේ පිළිබඳ නිශ්චිත විසඳුමක් දීලා ඒකට යාන්ත්‍රණයක් ගොඩනගලා ඒක වේගවත් කරන්න වැඩපිළිවෙලක් හදලා තියෙනවා ඒ නිසා මම හිතනවා මානව හිමිකම් කවුන්සිලේ ඉන්න සියලු දෙනා තුල ඒ පිළිබඳවත් කියවීම.
The minister also said that the government has given the freedom for all entities to engage in protests without any hindrances. Minister Dallas Allahaperuma said that in the past it was observed that many protests were averted with violent acts. However, he said that this was not observed during this government period. He said that the opposition even launched a protest in front of the president's official residence. Therefore, he said that this was a move made towards freedom of speech.
In the meantime, a meeting between President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and members of parliament representing the Sri Lanka Freedom Party was held at the Presidential Secretariat this evening. 15 points forwarded by the Sri Lanka Freedom Party were discussed at this meeting. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, Ministers Basil Rajapaksa and Dinesh Gunawardena, MP Sagara Karyavasan and Sri Lanka Freedom Party representatives, former President Maithripala Sirisena, Ministers Nimal Siripala de Silva and Mahinda Amaravira, State Ministers Duminda Disanayaka, Dasuri Jayasekara and Lasantha Alagiyawana, Deputy Speaker Ranjit Siambala Pitya, MPs Angajan Ramanathan, Jagat Pushpakumara, Shanta Bandara, Sarathi Dushmanta, Sean Vijayalal de Silva, Chamara Sampath and Suren Raghavan were present at the discussion.
Minister Mahindananda Alutgamage emphasizes that no room will be allowed for a food shortage in the country. Remarks were responding to the query raised by the opposition in the parliament today. Also, a debate was held over the Pandora Papers in the parliament today. Parliamentarian Kumar Disanayaka inquired over the progress of the investigations initiated in the country on the Sri Lankans revealed through the Pandora Papers. Responding to the query, Responding to the query, Minister Ali Sabri said that an investigation has been initiated on businessman Thirukumar Nadesan and former Deputy Minister Nirupama Rajapaksa as mentioned in the media reports. He also said that investigations have also been initiated over the former Prime Minister advisor Ramalingam Pakraralingam, as mentioned in the Pandora Papers. However, he said that none of the investigations are yet to be concluded. Minister Keheliya Rambukwala made remarks over the discrepancies related to his electricity bill in the parliament today.
453M Sarana Road, Colombo 7 in 2015, approximately around the month of April. The electricity bills that were sent to my residence were paid in full the first few months. However, when it came to my attention that there is an unusual variance from month to month regarding from approximately 30,000 to 150,000 and above, I wrote to the CEB seeking clarification and requested the CEB check the accuracy of the meters to ensure there was no misreading. Regrettably, the CEB did not respond nor took any action with regard to the matter. As a result, there was an accumulation of bills. The position of the discrepancies bills stands as of date even after many phone conversations seeking clarity have been made subsequent to 3 letters written to CEB. Furthermore, I have not been in occupation of the said residence from the month of January 22. Despite that,
moving on to more stories, Deputy Director General of Health Services Dr. Hemantha Herak urges the public to adhere to appropriate health protective practices during the upcoming festive season. He pointed out the importance of responsible behavior of the public to prevent another COVID-19 outbreak following the festive season.
New Year festive season is now coming, and we know there will be so many activities going on during the coming weeks, and until probably end of April there will be gamut of activities taking place to celebrate the Sinhala and Tamil New Year, for which the Sri Lankan has been accustomed. And during the past 2 years or so, we were not in a position to have these festive activities carried out as expected or liberally. However, even this year, still the situation is such that we have to be very cautious about engaging in activities aimed at celebrating the New Year. Basically, when you are going for shopping, do your shoppings as early as possible and do the essential shopping, and make sure that you are not going to the shopping areas or shopping malls or any other places unnecessarily without any reasons, because you will be adding to the risk of people getting infected through these places. And also there will be large number of activities organized during the festive season, and I want to emphasize and I want to request the people who are organizing such activities also that you need to organize these activities where you have to ensure that participants are adhering to the health guidelines, and otherwise it will lead to a serious situation after the activity, because there's a very high risk of creating clusters after these events.
Well, it's time for us to give you an update on the global situation of the pandemic. Following the emergence of the Omicron COVID-19 variant, several pharmaceutical companies have announced that they will be manufacturing COVID-19 vaccines that specially target the latest variant of concern. In January, pharmaceutical giant Pfizer Incorporation and its partner BioNTech announced that studies were being done to compare its original COVID-19 vaccine with doses designed to match Omicron. At the beginning of the year, Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla said the redesigned vaccine could be ready to launch as soon as March. Moderna Incorporation made a similar announcement, revealing that the company has begun testing its own Omicron-specific vaccine and that clinical data should be available by March as well. Both companies have since reported delays in delivery of either several weeks or months in order to gather more data.
On more news at home, Minister Douglas Devananda says that infrastructure facilities should be provided to uplift the fisheries industry in the country. He made these remarks during an event held recently in Colombo. The event was organized by the World Bank Advisory Services and Analytics. The event was held to launch the report on priorities for sustainability management, managing Sri Lanka marine fisheries, coastal aquaculture and the ecosystems that support them. Country Manager of World Bank Chio Kanda presented the report to Minister Douglas Devananda during the event. State Minister Kanchana Vijayasekara, Director General of Ministry of Fisheries D. Ranatunga and Task Team Leader of the World Bank
TJ and
fisheries
Irene
products to
were
ensure
present
food
at this
security
occasion.
while contributing to the national economy has been the policy guideline for fisheries sector stipulated in the vistas of prosperity and splendors, the national policy framework of my government. Under the courageous leadership of His Excellency the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, with the guidance of His Excellency the Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, and with the dedication and commitment of Honorable Basil Rajapaksa, the Minister of Finance, my government is committed to achieve this objective.
Government has given a priority over the last year to get the private sector more involved, the agencies, especially NACDA and the Department of Fisheries. We have facilities all around the country, and we have opened up spaces for the public-private sector to come in as public-private partnerships. So where we keep the monitoring process, but the private sector gets involved in implementing the business plan for the country. So with that, we hope the resources that we have, without putting too much pressure on the natural resources, with the management plan that we have discussed, we hope that we can increase our catch and also increase our production, and also that the catch that we produce is of quality that goes into the export markets.
The report we are presenting today and discussing is the results of the advisory services and analytics by the World Bank. That's an advisory service or technical advice provided by the World Bank to the client governments. Member countries use those analytical work as well as the advice and analysis to development long-term solutions, policy changes, and development strategies by strengthening their institutions, policies, and investment. It is a vital part of how the World Bank contributes to the sustainable development of a country.
The backbone of the vision for 2032 is characterized, or that the fisheries sector is characterized by financially viable and sustainable, socially, environmentally sustainable enterprises that produce high quality and healthy seafood and provide good jobs to the community and not have access to commercial finance. It also is characterized by workers who are skilled in modern technology. And most importantly, Sri Lanka has a Sri Lanka brand that is globally respected. We are seeing, there are of course already brands that we're seeing in supermarkets in Washington, D.C., but there is a lot more potential.
We have a few recommendations that we have come out with. This really involves investment in real-time data collection and techniques, and invest in capital infrastructure as well. In the interim or the medium term, this would hopefully create a sustainable fisheries fund and help, cooperatives up and down the coast with activities which can vary on just helping family get through some issues versus a long-term developing cold storage facilities and other things which would improve the value of the product for coastal communities.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa met with Hambantota district physicians at a private hotel in Tangor recently. The Prime Minister was briefed by the physicians over the shortcomings which exist in hospitals in the district. The attention of the Prime Minister was directed on the acquisition of the Tangor Hospital to central government and the implementation under an efficient program. Minister Chamal Rajapaksa was present at this occasion. Veteran artist and sculptor H.A. Karunaratne's exhibition was held at the Gallery for Life in Timbiriga yesterday. It was held with the participation of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. The exhibition, organized by the Embassy of Japan in Sri Lanka, has been named as The Essence of Japanese Beauties. Following the opening of the exhibition, veteran artist Karunaratne presented a memento to the Prime Minister. Japanese ambassador to Sri Lanka, Mitsukoshi Hideki, was also present at the occasion.
Now, Oman-Sri Lanka Business Forum and B2B meetings were held recently at the National Chamber Auditorium. The event was organized by the National Chamber of Commerce, Sri Lanka. The Memorandum of Understanding was signed between the National Chamber of Commerce, Sri Lanka, and Oman Chamber of Commerce and Industry. President of Oman Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Reed Juma Mohammed Ali Al Saleh, President of the National Chamber of Commerce, Sri Lanka, Nandika Buddhipala and Sri Lanka Ambassador in Oman OL Amir Ajwad were present at this occasion.
The entire world is moving towards globalization, so as Oman. And
Sri Lanka can be a pathway for Oman business to enter Southeast Asian countries by utilizing Sri Lanka's FTA with India, Pakistan, Singapore, and there's an impending FTA with China as well. And there we have other countries we are also negotiating FTAs. And also in turn, Oman can be a gateway for Sri Lankan business to enter MENA region as well as the USA by utilizing Oman's FTA with United States of America. That's a huge opportunity. Oman has signed FTA with United States of America. So our business can make use of that opportunity in Oman. Therefore, I believe that the unprecedented visit, such a big visit, high-level delegation from Oman Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which is the sole representative of the whole private sector in Oman, as I mentioned earlier, will serve as a catalyst to forge further bilateral cooperation and in trade and investment between the two countries in the days ahead.
a year ago, we celebrated the 40th anniversary of the establishment of the mutual diplomatic relation, taking our historical relation to a new stage. That's based on enhancing the communication, mutual respect, as well as exploring the difference, opportunity, and working together towards the gathering together. The future aims to work more, especially since the trade exchange between our two countries has witnessed a noticeable function in the recent year. We in OCCI, in coordination with the cooperation with the Sri Lankan national chambers, affirm our role for following up on what is being accomplished and what's overcoming and obstructing and challenging the hinder our common path. We hope successful for this forum, and we are here to have a B2B meeting at later stage, and any explanation to start the business in Oman, we are ready.
Ours is a very vibrant economy. We have over 1,240 known companies operating here in Sri Lanka, and we have been an open economy for 40 plus years, one of the first to open up in this region. So we're looking at over 5% GDP growth in the next 10 years. We've identified 5 priority sectors through which to drive that growth, and we are also looking at transforming Sri Lanka into a knowledge-driven economy.
Port City Sri Lanka is obviously, as all you know, special economic zone, creating wealth to the Sri Lankan economy and getting interacted with the globe, the total global business community as well as the Sri Lankan business community, opening up opportunities to bring up FDIs, foreign direct investments to Sri Lanka, and to make it much more, contributing to the Sri Lankan economy, bringing up and elevate the Sri Lankan GDP.
Today is International Women's Day, so to mark the special day, many events were organized in the island. A special program marking the International Women's Day was organized by Sri Lanka Women's Bar Association as well today, and it was held at the BMICH. The chief guest of the event, spouse of the Prime Minister, was Shiranti Wickramasinghe Rajapaksa and Minister Ali Sabri. Awards were presented to female medical and health professionals in appreciation of the commitment shown during the COVID-19 pandemic period. Minister Pavitra Vanyarachi was also present at the occasion. Another commemorative program was held at the National Broadcasting Corporation's Ananda Samarakon studio. It was held with the participation of Minister Nimal Siripala de Silva. 150 women representing various professional fields were present at this occasion. State Minister Sudarshini Fernandapule, MPs Rohini Vijayaratne and Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, Director General of Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation, Chandrapala Liyanage and Deputy Director General Myri Abesinghe was present at the occasion. Lanka Lankari Uttamavi 2022 awards ceremony in parallel to the International Women's Day was held today. It was held at the Western Provincial Aesthetic Arts Institute. The event was organized by Ahasa Media Group. 30 women who have rendered great social contributions in various fields were felicitated at the event. Deputy Director Programs of Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation, Suramya Mapiti, was felicitated too. A mobile app named Idiriyo was introduced today, marking the International Women's Day. The event was held at the Colombo Municipal Council premises with the participation of Mayor Rosie Sinanaika. St. Gabriel's School in Hatton has been transformed into a national school in parallel to the International Women's Day.
Now on sports, this is special as well because it's Women's Day. So National Rupavahini Corporation initiated a wonderful tournament. Now this is cricket, which is to do with women. The teams collaborated and the champions were the Sri Lanka Army team, and this was the Sixers cricket tournament organized by Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation.
Sri Lanka Army was able to clinch the championship of the Women's Roost Sixers cricket tournament organized by the national television, marking the International Women's Day. They competed against Sri Lanka Air Force at the Bloomfield grounds in Colombo. 6 women's sides took part in the tournament. Sri Lanka Army in the final match of the tournament scored 73 runs, losing only 3 wickets in their stipulated 5 overs. Nilaksha De Silva scored 46, chasing a mammoth target. Sri Lanka Air Force team was only able to score 64 runs for the loss of 3 wickets. Accordingly, Sri Lanka Army managed to clinch a 9-run victory. The best player of the tournament was Sri Lanka Army's Imalka Mendes. Chairman of the Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation, Sonala Gunawardena, said that women have shown their skills and abilities to the entire world in various sectors, including sports.
සිව්මැලි පමණක් නෙමෙයි ක්‍රිකට් වැනි ක්‍රීඩාවකට දක්ෂයි කියන එක තමයි අපිට ලෝකෙට පෙන්වන්න ඕනේ.
An inter-district netball tournament was organized by Western Provincial Netball Federation, marking the International Women's Day. 6 teams representing 3 districts competed in the tournament held in Torrington. Chief guest of the tournament was Minister Namal Rajapaksha.
And that's all the news we have for you today. Thank you very much for joining us. We invite you to join us tomorrow as well at 8:50 p.m. on Rupavahini for the latest on the primetime news. And until then, it's Bilanjali along with Sharifa and everyone here at Rupavahini. Good night.